As soon as today, state lawmakers could get back to work at the special session at the state capitol in Austin.
Some Texas Democrats are expected to return, meaning the House could make quorum for the first time after a 2-week holdout. GMET's Marshall Farmer is with us this morning with a look at what comes next for congressional redistricting. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning to both of you. Some Texas Democrats are set to return after California launched plans to redraw their congressional maps to counter Texas's proposed map. The second special session's agenda is almost identical to the first, with redistricting efforts still being the main talking point for lawmakers. In the Texas Senate, a redistricting committee met yesterday evening to discuss the new congressional map. It passed the committee with a 6-3 vote, moving forward to the full Senate. It would add 5 new Republican districts ahead of the 2026 election. And during public testimony at that meeting yesterday, 43 people testified about the new map, with 42 of them against it, citing concerns of racial gerrymandering. Senator Phil King, the author of the redistricting bill, says that he had other intentions.
I did not take race into consideration when drawing this map. I drew it based on what would better perform for Republican candidates. My intent was to help elect more Republicans to the U.S. Congress, because I believe that the policies that they will promote will be in the best interest of the state of Texas.
It was later clarified during that meeting that Senator King did not draw the new congressional maps like he said. He only filed them. We'll find out later today at noon if the House will have enough members to hold a quorum to also discuss redistricting. Lane, Deanna.
All right, Marshall, thank you.